Hello, hello. Mm. I always need to shout out the people that might be watching on video on the tube. I have fire going on. All right, there is an open flame to set the mood. These are my beautiful altar candles that help tap me in to the spiritual energy of the room. So I'm lighting it, and I got an open flame. And if you're listening, just audio, just imagine an open flame. Honestly, I might burn myself. Anyways, hello. Thank you for choosing to listen to this podcast, Take with a Grain of Salt. It's been a minute. My name's Maddie. If this is your first time listening, welcome. So thankful that you decided to take time out of your day to listen, and hopefully you get some insight from anything that I yap about. And yeah, this is a space, just a reminder, this is a collective space where I want everyone to just genuinely feel welcomed and safe. You don't have to show up as anything, obviously, because I'm not going to know, because you're probably listening by yourself. But even just to yourself, listening to... Sorry, Java. Oh, thanks, Java. I get sidetracked easily. But even if you're just listening to with yourself, you don't need to show up as anything when you're listening. Just show up as you are. And I want this to be a little hub where you just feel like where you're at in life is exactly where you're supposed to be at. Even if you're going fucking through it, this is a space where I tell you that it is going to be okay. And it too shall pass. And yeah. All right, damn. We're getting into it. So yeah, thank you so much for choosing to listen. And it's been a minute since I've done an episode. I feel like I've been lacking the creative inspiration to record / also just feeling like I'm not intelligent enough, or I don't have the knowledge enough to speak on certain topics, because I feel that personally in my life, I'm kind of learning. I'm always learning, but in this present moment, or in this season of life, I feel like I'm learning more firsthand in an experimental way, that it's more challenging to speak on things knowing that I have full confidence in like what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's why it's been a little bit since I've recorded, just for my own personal. I don't really think anyone's looking at their watch and be like, damn, when's Maddie gonna put out another episode? But it's more for me when I think over the past month or month and a half, whenever I released my last episode, there's that thought of, you can record a podcast on this, you can record a podcast on that. But I don't know, I wasn't really confident enough to know what I would talk about. However, I think the past couple days I've been feeling that itch to record, and today just felt right. And I have some things I want to mention that will probably end up me speaking on for a while, as per usual. But it's kind of like a catch-up episode / the things that I have been experimentally learning over the past month, and my thoughts on that, and how I want to, I don't know, maybe share some wisdom. Honestly, to get started, one thing that I don't know if any of you guys that are listening feel the same way, But I feel that I put this pressure on myself to, obviously, like, we know coming out of high school and coming out of even college that society's like, you have to know what you're supposed to do. You have to have basically all the knowledge and know what path you're supposed to take. Which one, that societal pressure is so insane to me. However, I put that pressure on myself. And sometimes I think, as a 23-year-old young female who still sometimes thinks that she's like 12, because sometimes I act like I'm 12, I put this pressure on myself to like know exactly how to regulate my emotions, know exactly the advice to give to my friends, know exactly what step to take and what decision to make. And I put this pressure on myself to just know. Like, to just know everything. And I don't know, I've like, part of me, I have a spongy brain, right? I really do like to know. I love to learn. I love to evolve and know how I can be better, be wiser, be more in tune with my body. But sometimes you just gotta like take a second, take a beat, and be like, I shouldn't know everything. Like, I know this sounds so fucking obvious, and I'm hoping that this reaches the right audience, but there are people who just feel like so disappointed in themselves when they make a mistake, or so disappointed in themselves when they feel like they should have said this or they shouldn't have said this. And I'm one of those people. And I'm trying to give myself grace more on the fact that I don't actually know a lot. And that's okay. It's so okay. I do think I give myself too much pressure because I do know a lot. I am emotionally intelligent and I'm confident when I say that. But it's also the fact that there is so much more to learn when it comes with time and experience, that it's not like I can be some fucking wise ass 90-year-old in a 23-year-old body, unless if we're talking about reincarnation and past lives, maybe I feel that pressure because maybe in a past life I was an old ass 90-year-old who had all the wisdom in the world. I don't know. My point is that one of the big things that I think I'm realizing is that it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to be impulsive sometimes. It is okay to not know. So let's get into that little part. It's so okay to not know. If anything, there is so much magic in not knowing. And I actually am starting to come to terms with the fact that there is so much playfulness in not knowing what is next or what can happen. And anxiety can really know how to turn that around and make you more fearful instead of curious. But yeah, I don't know. There is so much playfulness in not knowing what's going to happen next. And I think there are some people out there that really can trust that. And I admire those people. But the people that, are listening that feel the way that I do, there's so much magic in just not knowing. And there's also so much magic in fucking up and taking accountability on fucking up. Obviously it's situational, but there are definitely some things I think in the past year that I would say I fucked up, or I would say I shouldn't have done that or shouldn't have maybe said that. But there's magic to that because it's all in how you use it for good. And if you're someone who uses things and takes them and works at it in a way where you want to use it for growth, there's so much magic in that. I'm a extremely optimistic person. I think I always have been since the day I popped out of my mother's vagine. I've always been optimistic. But I think I don't know, I think there's so, oh my God, it's just so much more peaceful being able to look at things and have a mindset on things that can be used for your good. You know? I'm going to open my notes app because I also wrote some notes down today that I kind of wanted to talk on. But, you know, if you're new to this podcast or you haven't listened to me in a while, just a reminder, I'm going to talk about astrology because it's a very important theme in my life. And I'm going to sound spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. That is my view. So I live a very spiritual life. It helps me connect to my body. It helps me feel in tune. It helps me feel fucking peaceful. So, you know, if that's not your vibe, maybe you're open to kind of that conversation, or you're more than welcome to move on because I just really like that shit. All right. So, as we know, eclipse season was the past few weeks. I feel like eclipse season in total is like a month long, where you entered the eclipse portal and you just notice that there's like moving and grooving happening in everyone's lives. You know, people are fucking crying, people are breaking up, people are meeting new people are getting new job opportunities, people are getting fired, people are just randomly moving. And then if we're talking about the Earth as a planet, we're having hurricanes, we're having fucking earthquakes in California. I don't know. So it's just, there's a lot happening in the energy of our universe. And the eclipse season, I think that portal necessarily did just end. And earlier this year, I did an episode on just talking about eclipse season and what I've learned. And I feel like this could kind of go along with that. But yeah, I want you to take a second and kind of just reflect on how middle of September to wherever you're at right now, or maybe it's not a month long, so sorry about that. I didn't say I was what's the word? I didn't say I was no fucking genius on astrology, but I feel like it's like maybe a 3-week period. But reflect on how you were the end of September to now, and just if you can recall things that just happened randomly. It's very eclipse season. And, you know, in the midst of it, it's always like, damn, this sucks. Like, this is very, very hard. Life is not going my way. But then you start to notice, at least for me personally, that like around end of October, like just around this time, you start to see the shifts that shifted, but things become lighter, things become more on your side. It feels like if you're one to kind of think that, you know, life is coming at me, you tend to notice though, like you feel more lighter around this period of time. Like, okay, things are kind of going back to normal, right? And I think if I can speak for me personally, I had, an eclipse season time where it was a lot more silent reflecting. I didn't really have any major shifts that kind of flipped my life upside down, but it was a lot of reflecting. And I think if anything, there was like more personally shifts that happened during the summer, where it kind of pushed me into a lot of solitude. And I think the eclipse time then had me really reflect, really come to terms with stuff. And this eclipse was in Pisces and Libra. So in regards to the full solar eclipse, that was on October 2nd, so only a couple weeks ago, that was in Libra. And that has to do a lot with relationships. So even if you can recall, like a couple weeks ago, how has your personal relationships have shifted, or even your idea on interpersonal relationships in all forms, work, friends, romantic, family, like let yourself recall how those things have either shifted or you've like come to terms with stuff. And I can say very blank statement that there has been a very pivotal, what's the word I want to say, or I want to use? A very pivotal realization on how I show up for relationships. And I think that's been a constant theme in my life. It just seems like when it comes to relationships, it's how I show up and then the access that I allow other people. But yeah, no, it was, I think all in all, it was very refreshing. It was reflecting, and it was a little sore and tender. So allow yourself to kind of recall how that was for you. And it's okay if it was major. Like, it's okay if there are things that were like game changing, or it's also okay if it was kind of boring and nothing really happened. Like, that is okay. So one of the things I wrote down in my notes app that I wanted to talk about, that I have been sitting with, is a quote that I really love to remind myself, is that, I'll just say it, it's, the good news is no feeling is final. The bad news is no feeling is final. First off, I don't like to use the word good and bad when it comes to when I have the conversation of life. I don't like using good or bad. It really kind of formulates this right and wrong image in my brain. I like to use the word sensible and non-sensible, personally. Something about that just clicks in my brain where it feels like lighter and not so harsh. But so you could say the sensible, what is it? The sensible news is that no feeling is final. Okay, whatever. It doesn't even matter. The good news is no feeling is final. The bad news is no feeling is final. So why has that kind of impacted me personally? There's something so refreshing about the realization that feelings are not supposed to tell you who you are. They're supposed to tell you what you need. Because I think the majority of my life, the feelings that I had, right, the feelings, the anxiety, the most prominent feeling I remember having, the two most prominent feelings I remember having as a kid were anxiety and also being very joyful. Like it was either I am an anxious mess or I am a very happy kid. Who knows if that's a universal thing, but that was definitely me as a kid. It's like I was the worrywart. However, I was just such a happy kid. I wanted everyone to be happy. But there's something so peaceful about knowing that your feelings aren't who you are, if that makes sense. And when I say that, and this is where it becomes a little spiritually voodoo language, but we are all a conscious, right? Like, just as the plant in front of me, just as Java, my cat, laying right next to me, like, we all have a conscience, and it is one, and the language that I'm using is so hard to articulate into words because it's you can't formulate it in words. It's more of a feeling, but this is me trying to formulate it into sentences. But we're all one, okay? And there is a higher power within us that we are without our ego attached to our soul. Okay, and I'm gonna break this down because I'm also confusing myself, so please bear with me. We are a soul living a human experience, so no matter what, our recycled energy that we are is experiencing the life of a human, which is our ego, right? And our ego loves to seek validation. Our ego loves to earn, and our ego loves to complain. Our ego loves to fight. Our ego loves to be thrilled. Our ego loves spontaneity. You know, like as a fucking human, when I say ego, I just mean the Madison that I am loves to seek, earn, validate others, get validation for myself. Does that make sense? So the personality that you are listening is the ego that's, gaining some sort of insight from listening to this podcast, which is good because we can use our ego for our good. It's supposed to be our friend, not our enemy. But circling back to our feelings aren't who we are. It's more of showing us what we need. That's something that's really opened my eyes and giving me trust and surrender into allowing life to unravel how it's supposed to, because it doesn't give this defining conclusion to who we think we are. So if I wake up in a grumpy ass mood, more than likely we tend to cling on to that feeling, and sometimes that goes for days, sometimes that goes for years. People are just moody and grumpy, and that kind of defines them as they're a moody person. Even me saying, like, me being a happy kid or an anxious kid, like, that was defining me, Madison, as someone who is always happy, someone who is always anxious, so on and so forth. But sometimes, or we don't, there's a sense of peace I personally get when I don't have to attach myself to a feeling, because they're so come and go, unwavering personally. They're so bold, yet they're so quick. And this could be speaking from someone who, like myself, who does tend to feel things to an extreme, where I could plop from one end to the spectrum to the other. So this is coming from someone who is like that, but there is just a sense of peace knowing that feelings are fleeting. They are, and it's so refreshing to me, because it shows that it is not defining who I am. And in some way, feelings are a constant, yet they're fleeting. It's like kind of ironic in a way. It's like the feelings, emotions, they're always there, and it is a beautiful thing that we can experience feelings and emotions. However, they don't define us who we are. And that's just something that's really resonated with me, because I think over the past few months, a main feeling that I've been experiencing is heartache. And I think that is a huge umbrella feeling, because it's like, all right, well, heartache can be anger and grief and sadness, but it all can like be at the same time. So it's easier for me to just say heartache. That is a feeling that I have been experiencing for quite frequently over the past few months now. And, you know, it's easy for someone to just get so consumed by a feeling, thinking that it's gonna last forever, thinking that it won't ever go away. And that's why we stay in depression for years. People can stay depressed for 10 plus years, and that breaks my heart, because it's so comfortable, yet they also define themselves as someone who is depressed. I used to be surrounded by a lot of people earlier in my life that were very what's the word I want to use? We're very attached to the idea of being depressed, because I think obviously we were fucking kids, so I'm not blaming them or like thinking that it was wrong, but that's a feeling that they knew really well. That's a feeling that they were comfortable with, which is being fucking depressed. And they attached themselves to that, which definitely led me to be like, I have depression. But yeah, like people can just get attached to a feeling that lasts for years and years and years, and they define themselves, and then they just kind of roll with it, right? But there's so much beauty in knowing that you can go from being depressed to being really fucking grateful, and being an angry person, but also being super empathetic. Like, to me, that is someone that shows complexity. That's someone that just shows nuance as a human. And I think there's something so magnificent about it. Like, because feelings are fleeting, you know, like I want to be someone who experiences heartache deeply. And boy, do I feel that deeply. But I want to be someone who experiences gratitude deeply. And I do. And I think a lot of people just love to cling on to one feeling and even identify themselves as that, when feelings are not who you fundamentally are, which is a magnitude source of energy, recycled energy, that is just as alive as, again, like I said, the plant in front of me, that just is, period. and is not identified and is not attached to being a depressed person or being a pessimistic person or being an optimistic person. If we want to use simple language to not always get so fucking philosophical and deep, sure, I would say, like I said a few minutes ago, I am an optimistic person. However, I know that the soul that is experiencing life in a flesh suit is not just optimistic. It's also everything else on the fucking spectrum. It fundamentally is love, peace, courage, so on and so forth. But does that make sense, y'all? Did I kind of confuse myself, but I hope that makes sense. And it's giving me a lot of peace, because in the midst of when I feel like I was really, really feeling the ache, feeling the sadness and the pain that I felt, I obviously think that it's going to last forever, but I'm here, sitting here a few months later, knowing that I can still hold that amount of pain, yet still also be so grateful and so aware of the joy that is also around me and the peace that is also around me. And I don't know, it shows complexity. It shows that I don't have to define myself as this one feeling and have it feel like it lasts forever. Like, scientifically, your emotions last 90 seconds. Okay? And we don't let that only last 90 seconds, right? I don't let that last 90 seconds sometimes. I do try and practice that when I feel anxious. I allow myself to feel anxious 100% always. But if I know that it's a fleeting feeling, I genuinely sometimes count or like put a timer on for 90 seconds to feel it and then actually notice it drift away, and it's like out of my system. It's really cool if you're like just aware enough to notice your body and how the feelings come up physically. And I think that's a big thing is, okay, well, Maddie, how do I just, my laundry's done. Oops. Maddie, how do I just allow feelings to pass me by? Like, they consume me. Like, what's the method? What's the solution? And from my own experience, feelings are always going to be there. We know this. You can't just like never experience pain. Like, pain is inevitable. Joy is inevitable. Peace is inevitable. Anger is inevitable, right? But I think what has helped me not let feelings consume me and remind me that feelings are not who I am, but showing what I need, is being extremely in tune with my physical body. And I swear to you bitches, if you just take moments in your day where you are so obviously aware of what your physical body is doing, over time, you just realize that, things are so, they just pass, man. They really do. Even in the midst of, a heartbreak or a heartache, or just being sad and angry, noticing that in your body, over time, you just realize that it will pass. And I think we get consumed also in the feeling of what it feels like because it's comfortable. I've come to terms with the fact, a couple years ago, and even when my sister kind of called me out, that I romanticize sadness. I feel like in some way I really did that as a kid because I was comfortable when I was really anxious. Even though I hated being anxious, there was parts of me that really enjoyed it in a sense. I wouldn't say enjoyed, but felt comfortable in it because my nervous system was so comfortable in the fact of that physical, eerie feeling, right? Of feeling like my stomach is like in knots. Did I enjoy it? It's like on paper, no, I didn't enjoy it. But in some biological way, my nervous system enjoyed it because it felt comfortable, right? So we feel comfortable in those feelings of depression and lowness, and also we feel consumed in the rush of life, the joy, the peace, which is, it could be a reason why there's addiction with drugs, because like that feeling, we want that to be eternal. But actually, and when I say we, I mean like our souls, just our awareness, our consciousness, have the power to physically notice how our body is reacting to something and actually allowing it to pass, or actually allowing it to happen, and to kind of, what's the word? There's a word. It's like to let it air out, and coming back to like how I've been feeling the past few months, that heartache feeling, I'm allowing it. I'm noticing it. I'm noticing the physical sensations of a tight chest, or, just feeling around my heart area. Like I actually feel pain and tenderness, and like noticing those physical aspects of it, like giving it grace, letting it air out, and then noticing and reflecting back on a few months how just gradually that awareness of it has, over time, the physical sensations has just dissolved. And that kind of can help if anyone's like going through grief, a breakup, mourning, tapping into the physical aspect of it, and then over time, once more, just months has passed, years has passed, really like realizing how your body just went through this metamorphosis in a sense. Feelings are fleeting, bitch. And that kind of takes me into this next excerpt that I actually adore, and it came from my favorite book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. How pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Oh my God, there's the way that there's so much power and truth in that. I have to burp. Ew. Oh my God, I had tuna for lunch, so that was like a tuna burp. Sorry. I just took a sip of water. There's so much power and truth to how pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And oh my God, that can be a whole ass podcast episode on this, but that's something that is also kind of correlates with the fact that feelings are fleeting. We can't avoid pain. We can't. All right? I've tried to avoid pain. We can't. However, we have the choice to decide if we want to let it, if we want to be in suffering. And to note, okay, suffering can be necessary sometimes, all right? I'm not saying we can't suffer. The suffering also can transfuse and alchemize into transformation as a person, if you want to look at it like that. However, people can get in suffering where it is just all-consuming, and they never, ever get out of this fucking black hole because it's so comfortable, and it's so rich with feelings. And we equally love it, but we equally hate it. You know, the ego loves it, but our soul doesn't want to be suffering. Our soul realizes, yeah, pain. We're on a planet with destruction and an ego filled, like billions of people with ego problems. Like, pain is inevitable. That will come. Our soul recognizes that. Our higher intelligence obviously knows that. But it doesn't want to be in suffering. And that's something that's just been really, really helpful in where I've been kind of going through this season of my life and how I wish to continue the rest of my life, is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And I will speak on how suffering is necessary sometimes because, like I said, it alchemizes into allowing yourself to transform and evolve and, you know, grow. It's more of the, I'm going to bring it back, but like the awareness of the fact that this suffering won't last forever. You know, like I could say, yeah, I was fucking suffering a couple months ago. Like the pain was deep. The pain was just like, oh, I hated it. I did not like it. But there was that awareness that I had in myself that I know that this will not last forever, and it doesn't have to. If I gave it the choice to last forever, I would still be suffering. I would still be sad over this situation, but I'm not allowing that control. Ooh, am I just like spitting facts right now? Okay, my little next thing on my notes app. A true apology doesn't expect forgiveness in return. Let's dive deep into that. Let's dissect that a little, because honestly, I've just kind of come to terms with this in the last 7 days. So in some ways, I'm still kind of balancing that out and like really feeling that, because a true apology doesn't expect forgiveness in return. So, I mean, think about a time where you had to apologize to someone or take accountability, and part of you wanted a response in return of, I forgive you. Thank you so much for saying that. Or, I don't know, just like acknowledging it, right? Like we like that acknowledgement of being vulnerable. But what I've come to realize is that a true apology, a true moment of vulnerability that you expressed, a true moment, dare I say, of integrity, true being in full true integrity of apologizing or just even being yourself, does not want to live up necessarily to the expectations of what others' response will be. I had a situation where I've been wanting to apologize about something, and I knew I wanted to, you know, personally for me, I don't really, at least in this moment as a 23-year-old and from the knowledge that I know about myself right now, I don't really have a problem with apologizing. Like, I like taking accountability for shit because I have that mindset of I'm just trying to evolve and heal my wounds and realize that I'm gonna fuck up. Even though sometimes I get disappointed in myself, but there is like an ease to me just like saying sorry or apologizing or taking accountability. But if I had to be honest though, the people-pleasing tendencies in me that I've been learning to untangle a bit is that I always wanted a response, because in some way it would show that, you know, since I apologized to you, I'm automatically kind of the bigger person, or, you know, now you have this perception of me as someone who takes ownership for their shit. And kind of not a bad perception that I want people to have of me, right? But that automatically just then forms into an ego seeking mindset where it's like, I'm not like, am I even truly apologizing for this? You know? And in some cases, yeah, sure. But in other cases, little things that I've said sorry for in my past, it's like, I know I'm just saying sorry to you because it's going to show you that I'm a better, like a bigger, smarter person. I don't know. But, and I think we're all a little bit like that, all right? However, this situation where I wanted to apologize for something, I've really been sitting with it for the past few months because I've been reflecting on how I've shown up in this certain situation, how I've shown up to this certain blah, 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 blah. And just, I've been really reflecting. I've really been looking within, investing in myself, realizing like, oh, these are my patterns. And I want to genuinely apologize for that because I'm coming to realize that not everyone is like me, right? And I'm putting expectations on people for them to show up exactly like how I would. And that is just not realistic, all right? So, I love how I can speak in circles and then I'm like, what was my main reason for speaking though? But anyways, so there was a light bulb, an epiphany moment where the apology that I gave, I felt true integrity in it. I'll use the word integrity. I felt true integrity in this apology. And again, it's something that I felt before, right? There is so much personal power and character that shows from apologizing. So it's something that I am familiar with. However, this one felt different because it really just came from a place that I knew was just an authentic place in myself, okay? And I realized, like, I kind of asked myself the question, like, well, what if they, like, I wonder how they're going to respond to it. Or, like, what if they don't respond to it? Or, like, what if they don't respond how I would hope for them to respond? And those were all just thoughts coming in. And this is how I know it was just from a place of truth, is that I truly just did not care. And when I say I did not care, it doesn't mean I'm not caring what they would say if they were to respond, but I had no pressure of expectation on their response. And I feel that kind of then goes on the whole spectrum of taking accountability, is you don't have that expectation on the other person to respond, because that's not the true reason on why you're apologizing to someone, or why you're even, for another example, like taking accountability and, you know, maybe admitting to someone a reason behind you did, like admitting to someone, a close friend or something, of like a reason why you did something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an apology, but just like admitting and knowing that from that accountable place, you're not expecting that receiving person to kind of say anything back, right? Because it comes from a true place of integrity. So that's something I've been realizing, that even just living in full integrity is removing the expectation of someone else, of like another person's response. That's really opened my eyes and kind of, and again, this is so fresh. Like, this was an epiphany not too long ago where I'm like, damn. Like, that's so true. You know? Sometimes like spitting facts like this can tire me out a bit. Another thing I wrote down that goes along with the integrity topic is the only expectation to place on being in full integrity is not having expectations from others in response to us living in true integrity. And I'm going to read that again. The only expectation to place on being in full integrity is not having an expectation from others in response to us living in true integrity. I've been reading this book by Martha Beck, and I have mentioned Martha in my previous episode, and I think another episode that I never released, but it's called The Way of Integrity. And if you're watching the video, it looks like this. The Way of Integrity. Finding the path to your true self. God, I love a self-help book. I don't even like calling it self-help books. Like, is there another word to call those books? Because I'm just fascinated in I don't know. I hate being like, yeah, like I only read self-help books. But I guess to another person, it's like, yeah, you really only read those types of books. But it's not like that. It's really not. It's just I'm so curious. Anyways, I've been reading this book, The Way of Integrity, and I don't have enough to speak on it yet. However, the little line I just talked about, like living in full integrity is not having the expectation of another's response. That's kind of right now, at least my main takeaway from this book. But when I finish it, if I want to speak on it more, I will. But it's a really cool book, and it follows, like Martha speaks about finding your true self through the Divine Comedy and Dante's Inferno. And it's really cool. Which then makes me want to read the Divine Comedy, which I feel like I read in English class in high school once. And obviously I didn't care. Obviously I didn't listen to that shit. But now I'm like, ooh. Ooh, one other thing I want to speak about, and then maybe I'll just shut up, is... Hold on. So, I was journaling, like, maybe a month ago, and I was talking about, like... I was, acknowledging new, like, exciting feelings that I was feeling that were popping up. There's someone close to my door. Hold on. I hate this because I'm like, what if they're listening to me? Okay. But I was writing in my journal and I was acknowledging like these new exciting feelings I was just having about something. And it made me stop in my tracks and be like, okay, I've written about this before. When I get new exciting feelings about something, a new opportunity, or someone, that there's already like a time stamp on it for even using the word excited. Or then if we're trying to talk about physically, like feeling excited in me is immediately like this label of something speedy or quick or spontaneous or impulsive. So it stopped me in my tracks because I'm like, how can I view this situation in a way that really falls into the alignment of how I want to live my life, which is in presence and taking things slow and having patience and having time be on my side instead of having time be like my competitor. So basically, I'm trying to use the word curious instead of excited, because when we view things and we feel curious about something, right? At least for me, I feel as though I'm more patient, I'm more steady, and I'm more like slow. You know, if I'm curious about something, if I'm curious about someone, if I'm curious about a new opportunity or like a new job, I really tend to go at it in a slow manner because there's something about curiosity that just has patience in it. Because it's like, I don't want to go too quick. You know, I'm curious. And again, it's all in how you like kind of have the connotation for that word. But me personally, it's like curious really just falls under the theme of how I want to be present. And excited, it's great being excited, right? But excited is kind of like the same coin. And one side is excited, the other side of the coin is anxiety. And that's why you also hear like, oh, if you have anxiety about maybe going into a new job, view it as being excited for something, right? Because you kind of get those same butterfly feelings. Are you okay, Java? Java's is like curious. Speaking of curious little. Feels like he just saw a mouse or something. Because now he's like walking slow. But anyways, trying to reframe how I look at new things entering in me, entering in my my internal energy field, and being more curious about it like a little kid instead of being excited and like feeling super rushed and like you have to figure it out now. There's been patience and peace to that, you know? One of my favorite quotes that I heard that I don't even know who it came from, TB motherfucking H, is the fastest way to get somewhere, or the fastest way to get to something, the fastest way to know something, however you want to say it, the fastest way to get somewhere is to go at it slowly. And oh my God, does that itch a part of my brain? It itches a part of my brain that just gives me so much peace because, again, like, I'm a Sagittarius Mars, all right? My Mars is in Sagittarius. It's very, when I get excited about something, I'll use the word excited. When I get excited about something, I do go at it full throttle, or I get super into it and then I go really, really fast. How can I get it quicker? And this goes with people. This goes with honestly anything. But there's something so peaceful about knowing that the fastest way to get somewhere is to just go at it slowly. And I think in some way it's kind of like why it itches a part of my brain is because the ego person of Madison is like, how can I get to something super fast and attain it really fast? But the soul, the consciousness, the higher self that I am knows the blissful and the beauty in taking things slow. And I'm also aware of that and have practiced that. And I have so much, I guess, experience in knowing that the most attainable things to acquire and the people that are also in my life have in some way just been through going at it slowly. So it's kind of like both coexist at the same time in me. However, I want to go about things in as slow as possible. I feel like that's just going to be a constant theme in my life. Like, just to go about it slowly. And I'm going to learn my lessons on things that I don't go about slowly. It's not like I've perfected it, but the fastest way to get somewhere is to go at it slowly. So if you are in a rut, if you're feeling discouraged, if you feel numb, acknowledge it. One, always just acknowledge it, because it doesn't give as much power. Acknowledge it, and then also come to terms with the fact that the best way to, or the fastest way to get out of that rut, to get out of that depression, is to go at it slowly and gracefully. And also realize that feelings are fleeting. God, there's so much more I want to talk about. So, like, if you're still listening, you're a real one. You're an MVP. I want to talk about failure. And actually, I don't know if I like that word. Actually, I'm not going to speak on this yet because I want to eventually record a podcast episode on rejection, or if you want to use the word failure. And I want to speak on that. I'm not going to speak on it now because that will be a long time. So scratch that. But I'm going to end it here. And I just want you to breathe with me for a second, because I need to breathe, because normally when I get into these word vomit episodes that I speak a lot of truth that I've been also feeling, it can become overwhelming sometimes, because it's very, very, very vibrant in my life, and speaking about it in like simple terms, knowing that there's an array of audience listeners that are going to be listening to it, it can be overwhelming, because I'm like, did I say it correctly? Did I say it how I actually wanted to say it? So I'm going to breathe. Breathe with me, please. I appreciate whoever was listening. Know that I love you. I really do. And I value your time. Thank you so much for listening and for absorbing anything that I fucking said. I'm going to leave you with a chant that I've been applying in my life, and it's in the yogic language, Sanskrit. And apologies if I do not pronounce it correctly, okay? I am a beginner, so if anyone wants to come to me and say that is not how you pronounce it, I am extremely open-minded to it. But I will leave you with this. Aham asmi, aham asmi, aham asmi. I am, I am, I am, I am who I am, and that is enough. Thank you guys for listening. This is Take with a Grain of Salt, and my name's Madison, if you didn't know. I don't do weekly podcast episodes, but I upload when I want. And my goal for the end of the year is to release more episodes and maybe release a new podcast cover. So if anyone's listening and they feel called in some way to design me a new podcast cover, do it and I'll pay you. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day, a great night. I hope you have a very blessed rest of your week. Just a reminder to show up for yourself. You are the most important person in your life. Give yourself grace. Show love to others. And remember that not everyone is you. All right? We forget that sometimes. Release expectation. Channel healthy anger. I'm trying to get everything in that I want to say. Channel healthy anger. Put yourself in people's shoes. Try and find empathy within. Channel your heart chakra. Good night.